Kenyan gamblers will pay a fifth or 20% of the cash they've set aside in their wallets for betting in a proposed tax aimed at curbing the practice. Treasury Cabinet Secretary Ukur Yatani has proposed to heavily tax punters by raising the excise duty on cash wagered on betting, gaming, prize competitions, and buying a lottery ticket from the current 7.5%. If approved by MPs, betting firms will be required to withhold and forward 200 out of every 1,000 shillings wagered, regardless of whether the punter wins or loses their bets. The cost of renting space in Kenyan malls and offices has dropped. Listed property investor Ilam Fahari, iREITs, which is a real estate investment trust, says office rent in top-grade buildings has dropped by an average of 16.9% over the past 4 years on increased supply. This has left malls and office landlords with subdued earnings. Joining us from Nairobi to discuss further is Kevin Ngige, who's an equity and fixed income trading analyst with Genghis Investment Bank. Good afternoon to you, Kevin. Thanks for joining us. Starting with real estate, what's the reason for the drop in rents that we've seen in the property market?
Good afternoon, and thank you for having me. So the recent space we've seen around the city, especially around the capital, and those are areas of Westlands and Upper Hill, we've really seen skyrocketing buildings coming up, mixed-use developments, rentals, office space, all kinds of you name it all. So there's been a glut, of course, thanks to the pandemic, where now people were forced to work from home, and the demand for office space was not as exciting anymore. So those are sort of a different dynamics, and guys realized that, okay, with a stable internet connection, we don't really need as much office space. So most companies and SMEs really cut down on office space. You couple that with additional that we have all these private PPPs developments coming up where government is giving up land and the Chinese or wealthy developers are putting up space. We have anchor tenants. These are the large retail stores. We have South Africa and Botswana, that's Choppies and ShopRite, that exited the Kenyan space. And these are the traditionally, these are the clients that bring in most of the other clienteles that we call them the food storages. So a couple of, too much supply, demand has really fallen, and anchor tenants exiting the Kenyan space due to different dynamics has really contributed to this price plunge.
Thank you so much for that. So landlords are losing revenue, but surely this is good news for business owners who are seeking reduced operating costs.
Well, it is. It depends on how you look at it. As an SME or a small business or a tenant, an occupier, if you may call them that, it's good news for you as you bring down your operating costs. But on the flip side to that, we look at these buildings are, they're supporting many other businesses. Like I mentioned, when you have an anchor tenant like South African or Botswana brand, say Choppies or ShopRite, for instance, most of the other small SMEs are really get traffic due to these anchor tenants who need to pass by in the evening to do their shopping, who need to come and do, shopping for their clothes, their groceries, and all that stuff. So once these anchor tenants exit, we've seen over the last 2, 3, 4 years that most of the other small businesses also exit that space. So it's a flip side of a coin. Depends on which side you're looking at it, but ultimately it hurts the economy more than it supports it.
Gotcha. So what does this say about the COVID recovery for the property market, since it was assumed that there'd be a surge or at least a recovery with more people renting?
Yeah, so there was this expectation that businesses were booming. The country has fully been unlocked. As you can see, we're not now wearing masks. The masks policy has been pulled off. So there was the expectation that in 2022 or towards the end of 2021, going into 2022, at least in the midterm, we were going to see businesses resume operations back to normal. We've seen that in some industries. Some industries continue to suffer. Agriculture is one of them. We have droughts. Guys shifting strategies from crop cultivation to now other land use, like putting up apartment and rental homes. So this has really hit us. Hospitality industry is around 78% on the recovery program. But then even the ones that fully recovered, like the transport sector, the education sector, most of the services sector are now being grappled with issues that are to do with them coming general elections. So we have a new type of election where the incumbent now has finished their term, they cannot rerun. But how citizens are looking at it is the incumbent has chosen their horse that they're going to spearhead towards the election. So I mean, it's quite an uncertain election, if I may say. I think it brings us back to the 2007, 2008 kind of election, and I think most of these, FDIs, most of these businesses, banks are not lending as much, at least for now, and this is really, really hitting the economy.
And thank you for that, Kevin. So can the low rates, at least low rent environment, be sustained for the rest of this year and beyond? How do you see that playing out?
I see that being sustained. I mean, the landlords here, it's a buyer's market. So the occupiers dictate what kind of rents they're going to pay. And as I mentioned, a couple of, I even foresee them going lower, not just being sustained. As most of these small businesses, SMEs that really operate on banks' lendings for their operating cash flow are really going to suffer, and some might actually end up closing down. In terms of employment, we've not really seen most of the firms hiring back to their pre-pandemic level. So most of the guys are still at home looking for jobs. The government is on a hiring freeze. We have all these twin deficits. So I suspect these rates at the best will remain sustained at where they are. And I mean, the most likely and worst case scenario is you're going to see this going down as more apartments, more office blocks are really coming up in the city.
Very interesting. All right, from real estate to taxes on gambling, what do you make of the proposed raising of the excise duty on cash wagered on bets?
I foresee MPs really fighting this. Yeah, it's an election year. MPs are seeking for votes. I don't think this is the time you want to go and tell people that we are going to slap you more. I just looked at the numbers, and Kenya had just through one of the mobile telco, the biggest telco that operates, I think 95% of all the flows to the betting industry, said the amount wagered had doubled from around 49 billion Kenya shillings to 84 billion Kenya shillings. So that tells you, even with the 7.5 negotiated excess tax, Kenyans are still betting and gambling more and more. So I don't foresee MPs passing this. Of course, this comes with other sin taxes like the excess increases on water, confectionery, sugar confectionery, white chocolate, and etc. Beers, wines, you name it. So I don't really see parliamentarians passing this. I know they're going for a recess on June. I think it's around 7 or 9. So they roughly have 1.5 months to either pass this or put it for debate till after the election. So for now, I really don't foresee them passing this, and I think it might be maintained at 7.5 where it is right now.
All right. Okay. Thanks for that. But I do want to touch on one more thing. There's a quote from Treasury Cabinet Secretary Ukur Yatani. He said that gambling is extremely addictive and can result in a variety of harmful repercussions, especially for the youth. So is it about morality or raising revenue or both?
I would really be surprised. I think he's outrightly lying to the citizens in Kenya. I mean, it's not about morality. We've seen this government has really been struggling with deficits. We've looked at, we are now borrowing just to repay recurrent expenditure. Government wages. Most of the cash again has been now diverted to. We have an election, as I mentioned, in 3 months. So it's wherever we can get that extra coin, we are going to get it from. And there are only a couple of areas they can get these revenues from, and those are what they call the sin taxes or morality taxes, because the government is not really increasing the quality of life for its citizens. They're not boosting the business environment. The business sentiment right here, especially in the capital, is really subdued. Our peers and neighbors just around the east, like Rwanda, are really beating us on the best countries to start a business on. So I really doubt it's about morality, and it's about bringing in that 55 billion Kenya shillings just to sort of patch up those budget deficits.
Thanks. Still on taxes, what do you make of the Kenya Revenue Authority getting expanded or seeking to get expanded powers to freeze more assets beyond land?
So the two ways they look at the Kenya Revenue Authority, they are now rebranding to the Kenya Revenue Service, and there was a joke about that all over Twitter. They're calling them the KRS-One. So one of the government agencies that has really shined, if you look at all government agencies and parastatals, has become the Kenya Revenue Service. They've been hitting their budget, I think, over the last 3 to 4 years, including during the pandemic. Only in I think around 2019 is when they missed by a small margin hitting their budget. So Kenya Revenue Authority has been doing the right things, but now on the flip side to that is they've really been killing businesses. The second biggest beer manufacturer called Keroche has really so their factories shut for around 3 to 4 months, with beer inventories that was almost going bad in the next 30 days due to a tax dispute. So KRA is doing some of the right things, but then again, the approach towards businesses and SMEs especially has really not been to the benefits of Kenyans. We've seen companies laying off guys until they sort these tax disputes. So again, it's more or less about bridging those budget deficits. And I think the only way they see of doing this is through the Kenya Revenue Service. And that's why we've seen them increasing all these excise and taxable duties and fees, including on things like exogenous things like prices of oil. So I don't see much that will be raised from that. Of course, again, these are the guys who are supporting these elections. These are the guys supporting the incumbents and the guys running up. So I mean, this is something that is easier said than done for me.
It's all, the elections seem to loom over anything. But still, on that point, I just wanted to follow up. I mean, I understand about, it said that tax cheats or, wealthy individuals that are using tax avoidance owe about 260 billion shillings to the government. Right. Does that justify this move in any way in your view?
I mean, these are not tax dues that we are talking about 12 or 24-month period. These are tax dues that if you follow up, you'll find these are things spanning back down, 10, 15 years. So these KRA knew these guys are there. These guys are protected by powerful individuals up there. And again, even if you say they're going to raise that 200 billion, the deficits we have are crazy and are major. So it's not a one-stop solution. Once they bridge that, then what else do you do? I think what the KRA and the government in general needs to focus on is just boosting the business environment in the country, ensuring that guys are employed, increase the taxable base. What the government is doing is, dwindling and crashing that taxable base by enforcing all these punitive measures, as opposed to looking at it inside out and just boosting and increasing that taxable base. And by that, we'll be able to bridge our deficit. So that's what I said. For KRA, there are things they're doing right. There are things I think they're twisted by the government into threatening some people into maybe just going one way or the other during these upcoming elections. So I don't really see that going anywhere, to be honest.
Thanks, Kevin. Finally, about a minute ago, we were talking last night ahead of this interview, and you were delayed by traffic, and I was surprised to find out there was still gridlock, which I thought after last week with the agreement between government and oil marketers, that would end. Why is there still fuel queues around Nairobi and other areas?
I mean, you're right on that. I was just telling also my friends, and I if you remember earlier, we mentioned it. A distance of 200 meters, I didn't even need the fuel. I just needed to go and take a turn off. A distance of 200 meters took me 4 hours.
Oh
just
my
to
God.
Take. It was bad. Guys are really queuing on the petrol station, and most of our petrol stations are just by the roadside everywhere around the city, especially. So they close off all the roads, and it just becomes a dead end. It's a gridlock. So yes, the government signed 34.4 billion. They promised again to release these funds to oil marketing corporations within 48 hours. Again, I think I'm more trustworthy than my government when I promise something. That has not been fulfilled yet. So we're still seeing this gridlock. I was out today just a few hours ago, and the situation is just the same all over the country. And no oil marketing corporation will come and speak out for fear of being reprimanded by the government. So government insists there's fuel in the inventories, but the fuel is not getting to the citizens. So I spoke to one OMC insider at a confidence level, and they mentioned that the cash has not been disbursed, and that's just one of the issues. They've not been paid over the last 3 to 4 months. The other issue is they're purchasing, they're being forced to sell oil at the cost price, which is around 107 Kenya shillings per liter. So that's not something they're going to do because they're not even going to break even. So those are the two issues really challenging us in the country right now.
Kevin Ngige, Equities Fixed Income Trading Analyst with Genghis Investment Bank. Thank you so much for talking about the latest in the Kenyan economy. We appreciate your insights. Thank you so much.